Hello, welcome to the GA Plus Analysis Show, week 7. A very happy Séamus Hickey beside me. Despite the fact I'm actually not watching the match, so we're going to come clean on this, right? So we've a little WhatsApp group just on the show, right? Between Séamus, Collie, our producer, and head of production, we'll give him his title, and myself. And on Sunday we're talking about what we were thinking about doing first. Séamus refused to watch the Limerick Cork game back. So
refused is a strong word. Refused is a strong word.
Did you watch back?
It was blooming exhausting. I have, but it was exhausting watching it the first time. And talking about it's easier to play these games than watch them. There's no maybe. I was absolutely gutted after it, but yeah, we'll get into it. I feel like we could talk about both finals. Both finals had their ups and downs. But the Munster final keeps on delivering. I look back the last Munster final that was really a not a close game in any description was back in 2019, and that was Limerick Tipperary, and that was a revenge mission for Limerick. So Munster continues to deliver in quality games, in competitive games, and Cork really they absolutely brought it on Saturday.
The other side of this, and this is not to rehash an argument, is obviously Leinster wasn't as competitive, and we've trashed out that argument. How much of a consequence, Séamus, do you think that the competitive nature of Munster has on the actual All-Ireland series? So now we're going past the provincial stages. How tired, exhausted, sore, injured are the likes of your Tipperary's, your Corks, your Limericks versus your Kilkenny, your Galway, and obviously your Dublin?
But that's moot, right? Because the last All-Ireland winner from Leinster was back in 2017, and that was Galway. So it's been a Munster winner every year since. So the round robin can't be, and the competitive nature of it is only preparing you for the second competition, which is the All-Ireland series. So there's, that's not a thing. It's not a negative that Munster is as competitive as it is. It's also not a negative that Leinster is not as competitive as it is, because Kilkenny are doing fine, and Kilkenny are as competitive. And we'll talk about this. This Kilkenny team can play against any team. I don't believe there's any team that Kilkenny will go up against that they will feel inferior to, and I include Limerick in that, because that's looking like the track that Limerick are on. So and making no assumptions, but Kilkenny will feel, particularly after the weekend, that they're able for anybody. Galway have work to do. They weren't as bad as all that. Noel refused to watch the Leinster Hurling final because of the quality of the fare. No, listen. I looked at. I went back through it. For me, Galway just weren't at the pitch of it. We look at the. In a second, I got clips to show the pressure that Kilkenny were able to put on Galway, that Galway weren't able to put on Kilkenny. And talking about distances of 7-10 meters off of men at times, it's just Galway cannot afford it. Whereas Cork came against Limerick as the aggressors. They were the ones bringing the challenge and setting the bar. It reminded me of Tipperary in the first round of the Munster round robin against Limerick. They brought the challenge and they brought the intensity. And Limerick did that to Cork in the blowout in the Gaelic grounds in the win round. So you have to, if you're there with a point to prove, and Galway were the team in Leinster, you have to be the one that sets the intensity bar. If you're not the one that sets the intensity bar, well then you're probably you're behind the 8 ball straight away. We can get into it, but there was reasons for me that Kilkenny separated themselves from Galway, and when we get into the Limerick Cork game, there was reasons that Cork lasted to the end, and I would say possibly should have won it in regular time with the number of wides that they had. But Limerick had this habit and this ability, and they
just grinded it.
Not playing the peak, the pitch of their best we've seen, right? The pitch of their best we've seen it, and flashes against Waterford and against Cork in round robin. But even when the spine of the team, the Kyle Hayes and the Cian Lynches were quieter, we still have enough to be uber competitive. It's just that the penalties was a horrible way to decide it. But
my take on this is that nobody actually lost the Munster final. It was decided by penalties. Do you know?
And that's the truth. But nobody scored more than the other team. It's just it was decided by penalty shootout. But so ultimately, that's why I'm not devastated from a Limerick perspective, is that we went into a Munster final wanting to win it, especially the whole 7 in a row. We've already made history with 6 in a row. We went into a Munster final wanting to win it. We gave it everything. It was decided on the day. There's arguments to be made whether it should or should be decided on the day. The reality is it was decided on the day. Cork won it, and I think Cork were full value. I thought they deserved it. So there's nothing to mourn from.
And do you know what? It's the one thing that I always would see in a Limerick team is the impact of their bench. I just didn't feel at the likes of Darragh Donovan, Cathal O'Neill that came on. They just
very surprised. Very surprised.
First time I've ever seen that in a Limerick team where they bring on players and they actually don't.
It's not the first time. Yeah, it's not the first time. Like, so it has happened. It has happened. It definitely happened last year in the Munster round robin, where we brought on ourselves and they just didn't have the impact we were looking for. But like this year, I would have.
But the other side of it too is Cork done the opposite, isn't they? Brought in the likes of Conor Lehane and Kingston. I think they both scored 5 points between them.
I would say that it's huge credit to Pat Ryan, right? And and all the sideline energy from Cork and the combativeness. Like, in fairness, Kylie fronted up to it as well, and Kinark. There was nobody backing down on Saturday. It was the aggression that was on show and the competitiveness that was on show was stunning to me. Just to see the sheer, and like Clare have done that. Limerick and Clare have had these battles in the last couple of years, but to see Cork bring that aggression and the physicality that they brought was very impressive. Now, the referee decided, I would say, whether he left he left as much go, which contributed to it, and maybe then lost controls in patches towards the end of the first half, probably regained it in the second half. But that to me for Cork is a good thing, a good characteristic for that Cork team to be able to have. But they need to be able to reproduce it against the Galway, against Tipperary, against they need to be able to reproduce that. They've done it against Limerick now 3 times in 2 years. They need to be able to reproduce it against someone other than Limerick.
Yeah, look, so we'll get stuck into it. We're chatting for a small bit there, probably more than we expected, but as ever, good conversation. So I'll kick it off with a small bit of work that I looked at, Garrod Hegarty. Now, the wind obviously played a huge factor. Let's not try and deny it. It took, I think, Limerick was at 6.5 minutes to get their first score on the board, which is very uncharacteristic. But just even in the second half at times, I thought Garrod Hegarty's positioning was very deep. I understand it in the first half, but in the second half also. He, a lot of the time, went as nearly a third midfielder / into the half back line as 4 across the middle. And we see really always is their kind of runner from their full forward line out to cover space and that. But he actually picked up a half forward position. So particularly in the first half, he spent a lot of time in that half back position or half forward position, allowing Hegarty to go deep. And I understand the fact that they want to leave the likes of Gillan and Aidan O'Connor inside. But from set plays, I thought Cork done really, really well. In other words, when the ball was in the possession of the Cork players, what they done was really well. But as we can see here, this is a pocket, so technically it's a set play. They didn't actually allow Cormac to follow him. They actually passed Hegarty on because they knew that he was going to go deep looking for the ball anyway. So here they turn it over. Kyle Hayes gets on the ball. And obviously Hegarty is back trying to pick it up in the normal position. But because he handed him off, we can see here now that Cormac's what they're picking up really, which allows now Coleman to go free. So they actually didn't follow him all the way down and allow him to get the running game going. Okay, so they were very well structured when the ball was set. Okay, which I think was hugely positive because in the first game a couple of weeks ago, it was actually quite the opposite. Okay, but even from this set play, it actually doesn't go dead. In other words, the ball doesn't go wide or over the bar. The difference here is, as we can see the ball get played out, Hegarty again picks up the ball in this position. But because it's not necessarily set up to mark or to pass someone on, Cormac has to go here and he's actually not tight enough. Now, in any other game, that causes trouble because the wind was actually so bad, it actually didn't work out in some instance. That is the 4 lads I've highlighted here. The 3 lads I've highlighted here are the half forwards. And a lot of the time that would work out because Garrod Hegarty is so good at picking a pass. It just held up really, really deep.
Yeah, but the reason he goes back as deep as he was, like, it's breaking ball and the danger that Cork forward is trying to minimise the space.
And as we can see here, rather than a half-back or midfielder getting on to Séamus Harnedy in this instance, i.e. the wing forward, it's actually Garrod Hegarty gets onto him. So that kind of gives you an idea how deep he was coming against the Breeze. And he done it again when he was with the Breeze to try and create space inside. But a lot of the time his delivery is actually really, really, really good. Now, this is a free, and Séamus Harnedy does really well. He's going wide.
He's not the world's best tackler, is Garrod. Yeah,
He's not the world's best tackler, but what he is, his delivery of ball is incredible. Like really, really accurate. So I just found it interesting the fact that he was so deep at times. And like we'll show another couple here, right? So here he is. He's occupying the far side, which normally he's kind of closer to like management because they talk to him a lot. You'll see when matches go on that are actually talking to him quite a bit on where he should be and where he should set up. But because he's actually gone to the far sideline, and normally he's on this sideline, he's actually pulling in the likes of Séamus Harnedy and other people watching. You can even see Tim O'Mahony here that's in the middle. He's keeping an eye on because he knows that he's the person that's going between the lines. And as a result of that, it creates space. So it's a very, very smart thing to be able to do, to kind of overload on one side. You become very mindful of the fact that that player, and in this instance, obviously, it's Hegarty, and he creates the room inside. And it's unfortunately a bad miss for Tom Morrissey. We see him hitting them like 9 times out of 10. It was just a really, really bad ride. But his positional play was really interesting. Normally we see him kind of picking up the ball in the half-forward line midfield, but he was very, very deep. We can see him here atop the screen. Again, he was trying to create space. You can see there's actually 2 other Limerick players over on that side and trying to maybe overload again, but it just didn't happen. But as we can see, here he is. He sees now that the ball has actually been turned over, and his initial reaction is actually to get back into the centre-back position to try and cover any runners. But more importantly, if the ball breaks, he's actually the person on it. And when the ball is there, here he is. If the ball breaks, he's your option. Okay, so
I'm surprised they didn't actually the role that Garrod played, and you're spot on. Like, I'm surprised Keane didn't pick that up.
That's why I was trying to highlight it. So the ball is turned over here. And a lot of the time you'd expect a Keane Lynch to be coming deep and looking for the ball, but it actually didn't. But again, I can understand completely why, because what he is really good at doing as well is his delivery is exceptional, but his ability to set up the run, as in like he'll pop past the ball, he'll get around the fella, he can offload. He's kind of like an RG Snyman with Leinster. His ability to be able to get around the person and kind of offload, and then he's able to get back up through the field because he's fierce athletic.
But if you ask anybody who's marked Hegarty, like the main challenge with Hego is actually the lateral movement. It's so hard because he, like you said, no, the overload there that he tries to make. That to me is 8 times out of 10 the challenge in tracking Garrod, because he makes that run and he bursts and he commits to it. He's actually, his football background, like, he played senior football for Limerick for years before he joined the Hurlers, and like his football background is you run a running line and you commit to it and you run it all the way, and then you track it. But him going as deep as he was unusual in the fact that I would have expected Keane to come deeper and be harder to pick up because of it. I'm surprised it was Garrod a lot of the time.
And it's funny because this is something as well. My next point is looking at like the mirroring of Fitzgibbon and Will O'Donoghue. So I would have actually thought that the natural match would have been Tim O'Mahony and Will, because Tim is naturally a back. So he played a lot of his underage hurling, kind of centre back, wing back, kind of defensive midfielder. Instead, he picked up Adam English. So I was trying to think in my own head, what's like the justification for that? And I actually think that Fitzgibbon doesn't give away as much frees. And obviously,
to me, if I'm Limerick, I'm dictating that matchup. Like I want Darragh Fitzgibbon. Like Darragh Fitzgibbon is just too good. Like and even you can see it in the game. Like at the weekend, he's just so. And moving him to midfield, I thought was an excellent idea. When I was Limerick, I was actually disappointed to see it. I would love to have seen him play centre forward because I just think he wouldn't have had the same influence. And Shane Barrett.
It's hard because he's not wired that way. He's wired as a half forward, centre forward, to like go forward. So it's a very difficult thing when your natural instinct and you've been coached like for a very young age to get up the field after the ball. For him, and we'll show clips now of how rigid he was in doing his job and how good he was at doing it. Like he was always watching the play, watching who's around him, and then can actually fill into positions. So this is, we can see it here, okay? So this is a short ball, and this was merely a short ball by Collins early enough, maybe 12 or 14 minutes in, okay? And the reason he done this was primarily to keep Limerick honest, okay? But the reason I was showing this one is because the distance. Will was happy enough for him to get the ball if it was in his own backline. So he was given him position to be able to set up so they can go on opposite sides. Okay, here you can see the two of them, right? So when the ball is pushed back, you can see Will is kind of looking over the shoulder to see where Fitzgibbon is. And he said, you know what, I'm actually getting back to field here because I'm going to do my job. Ironically enough, what does Fitzgibbon do? Holds the position. I don't need to be down here because what my job is actually is to get back to field. So when the ball breaks here, the ball breaks and the first person really onto it, of course, here he is. Okay, and we have seen him doing this for 5+ years and incredibly good at doing it. Okay, so then obviously the ball, picks up. As the thing progresses, we'll start to see more and more of where it becomes important. Okay, the ball breaks down, okay, in a second, but look at Fitzgibbon's position. He has held his position, hasn't got sucked in. The easy thing to do is actually get sucked in with Will O'Donoghue and try and make it a battle. And what ends up happening is you can see him running back. But watch where his end position is. Fitzgibbon ends up on the 65, his own 65, and now he's actually to hold him back. But
that's class.
As it progresses, it actually becomes more important because you'll see another couple of examples where what Limerick do really well is when they overload, you'll start to see bodies floating. Tom Morrissey, exceptional at doing it. And when the ball is turned over here, this is a very lovely example of it. Okay, so Manash gets on the ball. Look at this. How many times we've seen Tom Morrissey on his own here? Okay, literally on his own. Now he gets a point in the end, but here's your midfielder, who's normally your scoring midfielder, if you want to call him that, getting back to field. Because of his pace, he can get a touch on him. So in other words, you're not going any further, and a point over the bar. That was a goal opportunity.
It's an absolute goal chance.
If he's not in that position.
Yeah.
Okay. And this happened time and time again, where he said, you know what? I don't care if Will O'Donoghue goes up to the far 65 or the far 45, leave him off. Kyle Hales sends it over. In fairness, Barry Nash does really, really well. But we'll see it here. There are your two players. Okay. So there your mirror. Will O'Donoghue says, I'm staying here in the 65. I'm actually not going to mark you. Right. All of a sudden, Dara Fitzgibbon sees the ball is going to break. Who's the first person that's going to hit it? It's Dara Fitzgibbon. Like Will has done in the previous clip. He hits it. And as a result of him hitting it, he turns it over. And then it forces Will to come into frame to try and put a tackle in. Okay. So normally Will doesn't want to be in that position. He wants to be back helping his full back line or his half back line as an outlet or creating that pop pass. But I just felt it was really interesting that both of them done their jobs and done really, really well. I was just interested to see that Fitzgibbon doing that job as opposed to Tim O'Mahony doing the job.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought Tim O'Mahony does that job because Tim O'Mahony is wired to go that way. Like he just is. And I know that Dara Fitz is good at going forward and they have played him, but he is a natural midfielder now. Like the vast majority of his positional play with Cork for the last, I would say, 5 years has been midfield. And he has been exceptional at it. Whereas Tim O'Mahony has been converted from a halfback to a midfielder because he was too attacking for a halfback and he wasn't defending. So, like for me, the talk before the game was, how is Kieran Joyce going to be able to cope with following Keane out without the cover? And to me, then he had it. He had the cover, and Fitzgibbon provided that. There was no glaring space most of the time. That Tom Morrissey one, I think, was one of the very rare chances that Limerick got with huge space inside the.
And generally, we see that a lot. Generally, we see that a lot where Tom Morrissey goes down to nearly his own 45 and just kind of casually runs up without anybody realizing that he's after making that kind of back. So to me, it's funny you actually say that though, right? Because the Keane Lynch situation was fundamental to the previous engagement where Limerick won quite well. So obviously Pat had realised that Joyce has to actually get on Keane, and wherever Keane goes, he's up his backside.
Well, but that to me makes sense. But that only works if half-back midfield works together. It only works like that. Because Ethan Toomey, good hurler, right? But Dara Fitzgibbon is an absolutely exceptional hurler. Yeah. And for him to be able to cover that space and still be a threat going forward, that's the special player he is. And I would argue he actually probably made more space for Shane Barrett to operate as well by actually getting out of the middle a bit more. And Shane Barrett went to town. I thought he had a very, very good game.
And it's funny because my next clip is actually on Cian Lynch in the air, and there's two reasons for this. Because, like, firstly, it's primarily to do with his obviously ability to win the ball, but it's actually more so to do with the space he creates. Because, like, winning the high ball now in the county game is actually a very difficult thing to do, because players are very good at getting like hands in, like hurling across, flicking the ball. Fellas are really strong. Okay, but Cian in the first half in particular was really, really good. And my second point, which we'll talk about in a second, is Cork went a bit old school. So here in the first half, Cian was absolutely, it was like glue to his hand. And the way he can kind of pop it around, it's the space that he creates as a result of it, caused problems for Cork against a very, very strong wind. So his ability to be able to catch in front, catch in behind, it means that you have to be really on point. Now, very well done by Owen down here, broken away from Aiden. Okay, that's fine, but the ball is turned over, no big deal. Okay, but it's more around the catching ability of Cian Lynch that actually allowed Limerick to win ball in their half forward and then create that pocket of space inside. So we hear Dermot Burns again goes long, but look at this, like, right, two fellas running reasonably like fast into a ball, but his ability to catch the ball inside of him is a nightmare for a back. But it's a very, very difficult thing to do as a forward. But look at the room it creates inside. Like, that is an absolute nightmare if you're on the full back line to try and, cover that space. And in fairness, Darragh Fitzgibbon sees it and he tries to get across there. Now, poor pass. But if we look at the top of the screen here, right, Aiden realizes this is where the ball should be. Like, that is straight across, and that's a perfect scoring opportunity because you have so much room. Unfortunately, it was a bad pass by Tom, and it just didn't work out. But it's the catch that creates the space and caused Cork issues. Unfortunately, Cork in the first half were trying to compete in the air with the likes of Cian Lynch and these, and trying to catch over him. There's not too many teams that catch ball over the likes of Cian Lynch and Garrett Hegarty and all those other really good forwards for Limerick. Okay, again, look at this, out to the side, play a hurley, bang. And how many times we spoke of this already? See Adam English, he destroyed Waterford by making that run. So when he knows that Cian Lynch has gone to the side, this very same side, because that's his catching hand, he holds him out, he catches the one hand. How many times have we seen that? But Tim O'Mahony and Pat are obviously very much aware that that's where they create goal opportunities, but it actually stopped them. Again, look at this. Look at the bodies around. Cian Lynch pops up. Normally, it's, again, Adam English making that run inside. Unfortunately, Cian Lynch goes to the outside. If he caught inside, it was a potential pop over the top. But great flick by Coleman, and the ball is away. Okay, so in the first half, Cork kind of struggled, even though like there wasn't a lot of outcome from those. But what it was, it created space and it unsettled the Cork backs because they were then scrambling, trying to get back to the field. In the second half in particular, now I know the wind was an element, Cork actually done the opposite. They didn't try and compete in the air with him and try and catch the ball with him. Got the ball to ground. So yes. I was in college with Scruff, so Owen Murphy on goal to Kilkenny, like, sound great fella. And I kind of was always curious because he played with that really, really good Kilkenny team, and I was like, as backs, like, what's like the objective? Like, what do they try and do? And the one thing he said to me, it always stuck, was get the ball to ground. They know they're going to win the ground ball. I was like, that's really simple,
but it's funny, like the reason for me there in the clips there, especially, right? The reason Cian's impact was seen as a bit lesser, right? In the games against Waterford and against Cork, where he was able to get that ball, his instinct is actually first, is pass first. That's Cian's first instinct. It's pass first, right? But in the clips that you showed there, it's funny. He'd have actually been far better off if he turned and attacked because of the spacing behind his men, right? But it's actually not the way he's wired. But the pass first works when the runs off the shoulders are tracked as well as they were. All the men that he kind of offloaded to, and sometimes the ball didn't go perfectly to hand, but they were all tracked and there was no free runners. Whereas, Adam English was absolutely, he was trailed all day. And there was no easy opportunities to get that. And yeah, I would argue that the delivery of ball at times, Will O'Donoghue was on two of those clips. You don't want him shooting, and he doesn't shoot. And teams know that. And that's the only weakness that I would say he has in his game, is that teams know when he has the ball, they're actually not afraid he's going to shoot. And if he's the one that he's getting the Cian Lynch offload, well, then that's fine. Mission accomplished from a defence point of view. It's not, the ball isn't in Cian's hand. So it possibly, you know, with the catching ability that he has, it's kind of like, for me, there was parallels to Conor Whelan for Galway against Kilkenny. He felt like he was paddling a lone canoe, being able to win ball. He was able to win ball and then be able to pop off. So you know, it's a having the ability to catch the ball is key. In his, you know, it's in his nature. But it's when the pass first doesn't work, you know, then you have to be more aggressive, and you have to put the head down, and you have to go.
And as a consequence, I think the Cork team were probably made aware of it at halftime, and I think they changed their attack very differently in the second half. Now, I'd say for various reasons, including they didn't want the ball going through to the full back line. So as you can see here, Coleman goes up. You can see he puts his left hand on Tom Morrissey, so he's not catching the ball. Whereas in the first half, he's trying to actually get up over the top of Tom and try and catch the ball on Tom. Whereas you can see a very obvious action here to get the ball to ground. Once they get the ball to ground, they get bodies around him again if it's given, straight on him. And I will see again that we have 4 bodies around Tom Morrissey, which we never really see that often. Okay, because he's getting the ball to ground. As it progresses here, we can see that we've 4 Cork players getting to Tom. And as a result of that, the ball is turned over. And what do they have? I wrote it down a minute ago. Was it 41 turnovers that Cork had on the day versus 35 for Limerick? And it's very unusual that Limerick are betting that kind of dimension. Generally, they are kind of beating all teams in that area. But as a result, then the ball is turned over. And unfortunately, it was just turned over again by Limerick. Again, same thing here. Hurley up, as we see it. He's not trying to bat the ball hard. He is literally trying to stop Hegarty winning the ball. So a little flick of his hand with his hurley or his hand gets the ball to ground, and it goes through. Again, Joyce can clean up the ball and give a good ball across to Séamus Harnedy, who's there. And actually, in this one, Gillan did an amazing job of hooking him. Okay, another one here again. So we're not catching. We're getting the ball to ground. We're getting bodies around it, and we'll build our attack. So here we can see this is a really good one, because you can see Gillan here wants to actually catch the ball. Okay, and he's amazing at it, by the way, right? But O'Donoghue was saying, you know what, this is not happening. I'm just going to stand out in front of you, break the ball in front. This was probably a bit of a controversial cut to Limerick, as the Bull O'Brien kicks it out himself. But in theory, what O'Donoghue was doing was absolutely perfect. Get the ball to ground.
And it's dangerous. You have to be flipping brave to play Gillan from the front, because how many times have you seen him nab it from,
and that's his bread and butter,
behind him, spin and go? So if you're going to do that, if you're going to commit to getting in front, you have to. It's win the ball or bust. It's a tough one for defending. So and I would say, I don't know how you find it, but I've always found it far more difficult to win clean ball with the wind. I think against the wind, it hangs up, and you tend to be able to get an extra. You get an extra half second or second to judge it and line yourself and jump. With the wind, it's harder. But Cork, it's very, very obvious in the second half. They were just like, we have to be more aggressive on this, because Hego had some fabulous catches in the first half as well. So it wasn't Keane on his own in the first half. Limerick's high ball winning in the first half was superb. But in the second half, it was probably the main reason that when Limerick scored the goal and got level, that Limerick didn't push on, because Cork refused to give them primary possession, easy primary possession.
Yeah, and that probably came as well from their full forward line. I thought the likes of Hayes and Connolly and Hoggy worked like I've never actually seen them work before. So they were putting legs and feet and toes in places that you wouldn't put a Hurley a lot of the time. And like that, I think, was the bar, because they didn't necessarily want the likes of Sean Finn or Dan Morrissey, like it's the quietest I've seen Dan Morrissey in a long, long time. They didn't want them getting out with the ball and starting running game, because that is
just everything was hard. That's the sense I got. And even in the last 10 minutes of the game, I thought Cork's conditioning was exceptional. I thought their ability to last the distance, and even in extra time now, it's just it was the same with the All-Ireland final last year. You're talking about it's so hard after giving it everything for 70 minutes. Sometimes it feels like watching like zombies in the second. It's just survival, trying to get through extra time. But in the last 10 minutes of normal time, I genuinely was surprised that Cork weren't able to nose further, because their conditioning was such. I felt that they were sharper. They took bad options in their shooting, and their shooting was not good. But like Kieran Joyce was super. Mark Cohen was excellent, still going at the end of the 70 minutes. I was just really impressed.
I don't think their subs though fed into that. Their subs that came on definitely gave those lads that you mentioned a bit of respite, where they could actually track players, they could put in hooks and blocks, and made their life much easier.
But they just to me, Limerick have always been superbly fit at to be able to see out games, particularly the last 10 minutes. But for Cork to be able to really live with them, and because Cork faded towards the last 10 minutes of All Ireland semi-final against Limerick last year. Like if that game is 2 minutes longer, potentially they don't win that game. So it's very, very impressive. It's obviously something that they've focused on, and the proof was there yesterday for me.
So you're going to talk about the full
So
back.
we moved to the Leinster final, yeah. We moved to the Leinster final, and
the full back line is a great place to be, is it?
But like it's just like the intensity that was there on show from Cork. I feel like Kilkenny are excellent at bringing that. Yeah, right. And it's very, very unusual, and it's weird when we don't see a Kilkenny team, bring the kind of intensity and the tackling and the ability to get ball to ground and be physical, like you were talking about in your conversation with Owen. Like that to me was evident. And the leader and the commander in chief was Huw Lawlor at the weekend. Like he's so good. Like, and sign is on. It's such a good move to get Kieran Whelan out of the full forward line, to get him away from Huw Lawlor, because he's just immense. Like in the first half, you've got Fleming plays the ball in. To me, look, so Kilkenny wins the ball in front of him. I love this example of full back play, right? So Kilkenny has won the ball. He's out on the side. Huw Lawlor stands up tall, and he's standing, or sorry, it's actually Mannion that wins the ball ahead of him. He stands him up, and he's like, okay, the sideline is there. I'm going to make him make a decision. When he pops it to Kilkenny, he knows I've got the sideline again. He's not lunging in to make a tackle. Every defender, the primary objective is make the forward make a decision. Kilkenny has the ball here. Lawlor is like, shoot from the sideline or pass it. He passes the ball. And Lawlor still, look at the work he has to do to get to bridge the gap on Mannion. And just as Mannion throws it up, block, wide ball, he's got that incredible ability. Nothing is easy given to him, and he makes the forward make the decision. So here I was looking at just the puck out setup. Galway let Kilkenny have easy puck outs again, like Dublin did last year in the Leinster final. But Kilkenny, Stephen Donnelly worked tirelessly, all day long in the Leinster final. So Pádraig Mannion got the ball there and he launches it, but Kilkenny were launching for 10 yards further up the field because of the pressure. But look, Lawlor comes out, grabs it over the head, sets up an attack straight away, ball to Kenny, and Kenny's away. It's it's amazing. Mannion wanted to get the ball in the mix, but Lawlor just gobbled it up. Here we have David Burke pull the ball. David Burke wasn't his best game, but here we have Lawlor, right? He's after getting out ahead to win the ball. That's after coming in, and in broken play. Look at the number of Galway bodies he's to get through. He gets the ball into his hand, and he's just so athletic. He puts the foot down, gets around Mannion like he's no slouch. Great pass, easy score. So not only does he defend really, really well, his athletic ability and his running sets up play just as easy. And it's just, to me, it's hugely impressive. Then the ball from TJ Brennan here. It's to me, it's ill-advised, these type of balls anyway. I don't think there's no Galway player in there that is a colossus. So here we've got Galway players not even in the area to contest. So we've got 5 meters between Whelan and Huw Lawlor and Kilkenny. He gets the ball, spins, and he's off. Look at the run in here. Great pass. Breaks down a bit here with the 2 boys. Billy Ryan gets onto it and hits a shot at goal. But here we have Conor Whelan. This isn't the last. This is decisive moments of the game. Galway are after making a run here, right? Galway after bringing it down to 4 points. There's a bit of momentum behind the Galway cause here. Just look how close he is to goal, the pressure that he's under for this catch, and look how high he gets off the ground. It's incredible defending. And at a pivotal moment.
You don't often see that, though, Séamus. You often see a player catching the ball by holding someone down with one hand over his shoulder.
Look at this fullback bouncing the ball off the ground and carrying it out. Look at the run in here. It's incredible. Pass out to Billy Ryan. And look, presence of mind here, calmness, excellent stuff from Ryan. And he puts it over the bar for a critical score. And that, to me, was game. At that stage, they pushed it to 5 points and the game was done. Here we have, this is just kind of the defensive Kilkenny, just layered on top of Hugh's overall dominance. Just their ability to pressure Galway consistently. So here you have Dave Burke steps inside. He's forced inside. Kilkenny now is forced back. Mannion is forced back. Tom Monaghan hits under pressure, and it doesn't even go wide. It falls into Owen Murphy's hand. That was characteristic of everything that Kilkenny do and do well. And Huw Lawlor obviously was the commander in chief, but the clip at the end there was just to show that every time Galway carried into the Kilkenny half, they faced bodies, and they faced either turn around and passing. Tom Monaghan got no easy ball. And he was excellent against Dublin in the final round robin game. Tom Monaghan got no ball. Concannon got nothing off of Huw Lawlor.
It was a strange one, Kilcannon hitting the ball high. They're hitting the ball high on top of Kilcannon, because it's not as if he's,
it's not his thing. No, what I will say about Concannon, he took the goal exceptionally well.
He did.
To get that, Mannion took the gamble to take the short free, and Concannon did really well. Kilkenny actually weren't expecting it, and they weren't set, and Concannon finished really well. Owen Murphy was livid. But to me, in general, Kilkenny are just really, really hard to break down, and going forward, every team that faces them has the same problem. Did you see Adrian Mullen, where he spent most of his time? Again, Adrian Mullen was as far back as Hego was for Limerick, way back the field.
Way back.
And but to me, he did it extremely effectively. Where when he was getting on ball, he's such a good long range shooter. He picked off some beautiful points. But
there was nobody famous at the time either. Now, there was nobody that was tagging him and basically saying, right, I'm going to get.
But that's because he was getting out of centre, and centre back isn't going to follow him. And he was getting out wide, and he was picking up ball, and it was masterful. Kieran Whelan did it against Dublin. We were talking about it. It was actually a mirror of. But when I found in and went up the other end, Kilkenny put Galway under pressure and they're shooting, and they didn't shoot well. Galway, the few times now, in fairness, when they did rise their defensive intensity, they did put Kilkenny under pressure. The first 5 minutes of the second half, last 5 minutes of the first half, Kilkenny were put under pressure at times, and they were Keoghan hooked, pressure on here. Mullen grabs ball, steps inside. Look, Galway effort is huge here, but look at Kilkenny here. Look at his shooting into a block, right? This is hard to do, right? Shooting into a block is difficult, but Kilkenny actually did it repeatedly, even when Galway got the defensive pressure. They did it well. So Billy Ryan flashes a ball in here. So again, the ability to win primary possession of Kilkenny is just it's incredible, and it's unbelievable. So out to Billy Ryan hitting into a block. Kilkenny do well to get pressure, and it's still a good score. Owen Murphy launching ball long, putting it down on top of TJ. That's always their aim, and he's just so dependable. So ball breaks down here. Mullen, look at this for shooting. So under pressure, it's hard enough to do it in free flow. You saw, Dara Donovan had a standing shot to win the final. It's hard enough to do it without pressure, right? But Kilkenny's ability to face into pressure and to execute makes them really, really difficult to break down. And so you saw it in the clips there. Galway did really well. But now I'm going to show you, unfortunately, the other side of it, right? When Galway then got worn down, then they had the 15-minute spell in the second half where Kilkenny really got on top. This is actually the first half. So we've got Stephen Donnelly in the centre there, stepping off of his centre back in Gavin Lee. TJ is after coming out the field. We've got this gap of space inside. The Galway defenders are too loose. You can't see it in frame here, but look, you can actually see we had Fintan Burke free, Pádraig Mannion. So they had a spare body. They didn't press up on their men. Easy score. Murphy hits a ball down the middle. Look, where nobody marking Stephen Donnelly. One pass. Paddy Deegan puts it across. Galway, Mannion is tracking Keoghan, but he's 5-7 meters off him. Daithí Burke is the free man inside. He goes to press TJ, but Daithí Burke is in no man's land now because TJ's after turning the corner. Mannion has to step off Keoghan. And TJ carries in, takes a shot. Good save from Murphy, but it's just, great save. Just
it's really good because Séamus as well, because they're after being so exposed, as in
but so loose.
So much room into.
And it starts from out the field. This 1-2 then from Kilkenny, like this is poor setup. Like it's to see the kind of John Fleming then trying to actually recover there at the end. It's too late. You either set up for your sidelines or you don't. So here we say going forward with Keenan Fahy, Paddy Deegan plays out. But look at this. Let's look like where's the mark in there? Like so, this is where Mullen was coming to regularly, coming out the side to win ball. And look at the clean strike. Kenny's long striking is very good, and it's something I'd be worried about from even if Limerick are to play them, their ability to score from out the field is very, very good, and Limerick aren't typically great at stopping that. Here we have Mikey Butler, like scoring from range, no pressure on from the puck out, and it just kept happening in this 15-minute spell. Richie Reid, hand pass. Here we have Paddy Deegan just winds up. Like this is a super shot from Deegan now, right? He doesn't hit them every time, but he has it in his locker. He can do it. Himself, Richie Reid, really good ball strikers from the half-back line. And if you don't get pressure on Kilkenny, like they can shoot into your blocks, you can shoot into pressure. If you don't get pressure, it's a turkey shoot. It's why I'd be concerned if anybody's going to play him in the semi-final is they can blitz anybody in a period if you lose your discipline. If you lose your discipline and your shape, Kilkenny have blitzed teams. Now, Anthony Daly actually made a very good point as well. Like, look back, they've switched off at times as well. The last 10 minutes for Galway, they made inroads and they scored 9 points on the trot. So like they have a weakness there that they probably do need to shore up. But on the flip side, they can bury teams in a 10-minute flurry.
There's two things there. I think the first thing is their speed of transition. So when they get the ball, how quick they actually get it to one another. Like a lot of it there that you showed is hand passing, whereas normally people are actually hitting the ball to hand, which actually takes a bit longer, ironically enough, rather than actually popping the ball to someone. So I think it's the transition from one player to the other helps them do it. But also, I think long-term, what you're saying, Séamus, is when it comes to like semi-final and potentially final, they have the ability not to get stuck into the ruck in around like the 265s, that they now have players that can actually shoot from distance and punish people. So now that's something different that teams have to be aware of. So rather than have to go into the forward line, they have now plenty of people in their back line that can actually shoot from distance.
And they will have a full forward line that'll punish you. When, like, please God, Owen Cody will be fit for an All-Ireland semi-final when Kilkenny play. And then that's a more daunting proposition again, even though who do you leave out? Stephen Donnelly's playing really well at the moment, so someone has to lose. But it's just one of those things where Galway again they were competitive in patches, so they were patchy again in Northern Park. They were patchy yesterday. They'll have to pick up. They'll have work to do now to face into the winners of Tip and Leash. They do have work to do, but that long range shooting for any team to do that well. It makes them very, very dangerous. And I think Kilkenny will be for the rest of the year. But in the same ground, in Croke Park, before the Leinster final, I wanted to touch on the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Like, again, every year, the Joe McDonagh Cup is a competition that, I think it's such a good hurling competition. The standard and the quality of the hurling and the competitiveness of games is, and this year has been excellent. Like, again, right until the last week of the Joe McDonagh, like the places for the final were completely undecided. Carlow, Laois, and the Kildare all on level on points, and it was just Laois and Kildare actually got their place in the final. But what a story Kildare! Like to win the Christy Ring, come up straight away, take a Joe McDonagh Cup final and be favourites for that Joe McDonagh Cup final. It's testament. Like, I played Fitzgibbon with Brian Dowling in UL. Great, like really good. Super player himself, right? But just you can see the coaching in this Kildare team is just superb. And I just put together a few instances of how I thought the Kildare shape, attacking intent was just really, really good. Here we have a short puck out here to Richie Hogan. Well, great name, Richie Hogan. This is something that I love, right? So you can see the three Kildare inside line circled. They're keeping over to the far side, creating that space for Jack Sheridan to run into over the top. And it's an easy score. Those easy scores don't happen unless it's coached. You remember we saw Cork do it last year with their forwards tipped up. But here, Richie Hogan coming out with the ball again, looking long, plays it in, great ball inside. It's messy a bit here, but when it goes into the ruck, right, teams are committed to this. But I just love this shape. When the ball is won, we've got a runner straight to the center, right? So you loop around the ruck, and ball is off the shoulder, and it becomes a really, really dangerous. Now, obviously, it's the blind side of Laois midfield here, but like, look at attacking hard. But I have to show this, right? Look at this save, incredible! Like, so that's the best double save I think I've seen and anybody make, no matter who they are. Kildare still get a score out of it, and it was good attacking setup, but the save was incredible, and I had to show it. Here we have trying to play out for Laois. Jack Sheridan intercepts it, but just look here, look at the amount of work that he has to do, right? A point would be a good outcome here, right? Remember that. This is in the latter stages of the game. Laois are trying to get back into it, make a foothold. Rounds 1, steps inside, and just the accuracy to finish. Like, it's just, he's a guy we're going to have to watch next year.
But even the low to ground checks, like, that's a big thing. Yeah. Like, how often do we see forwards going up and trying to like hit the top corner to put themselves on some sort of pedestal? He actually so well coached, he went low on the keeper. It's
Kildare now will have the preliminary quarterfinal, right, against Dublin. It's a free shot, right? I expect them to give Dublin a good go, right? We've talked about the preliminary quarterfinals. You talked about them. It's not. I don't think it's good for anybody, right? Kildare, after winning, Offaly won last year. They should be allowed to enjoy the success and the promotion. I don't think they gain anything from this a week after a hard game, right? But I'm looking at that Kildare team. I'm looking at Jack Sheridan at 11. I'm looking at the likes of Ian Bohr in the centre back, really, really good. Jerry Keegan in the corner. He's got a couple of beautiful points from corner. But they're fast, they're skillful, and they're full value for their Joe McDonagh. But it's a style of play that translates, right? They can translate. They will obviously. I think the strength side of things is they're going to get caught on the strength side of things next year. But there's 12 months, right? There's an off-season program. Brian Dowling is not going to sit and wait, right? But Antrim are gone down the other way. Kildare are up. I just think that for me, I think we'll slowly get to a point where we're getting a couple 4 or 5 teams. I include Carlow as well.
Carlow had a good result last year against Kilkenny, drawn.
Competitive against the top teams in flurries, right? Antrim didn't have a great go over this year, but like again, Annus horribilis in terms of injuries, like, it just desperate luck, I would say. But like, Offaly came up, really threatened Dublin and Wexford. Antrim last year threatened and beat Wexford, threatened Dublin. Carlow drawn with Kilkenny. It's just this is growth, and this is good for hurling, right? And maybe probably one of the main reasons why I think the preliminary quarterfinals it undoes a lot of the good stuff that is happening with the Joe McDonagh competition in and of itself being a great competition and yielding good hurling teams that are trying to compete at the next level and are succeeding in patches, but they're succeeding. And probably a lot of the reason why the preliminary quarterfinals are tough at the moment. True.
I'm sure we'll have a deeper discussion on this over the weekend as we travel to Laois to Tipperary on a weekend. Give our honest opinions on what
it's tough one for Laois to face into. Really, really tough for them because they were absolutely second fiddle and second best on Sunday. So like, trying to face into
their All-Ireland final is the Joe McDonagh Cup. Let's not take away.
It is an All-Ireland final.
That is like when they set out to start the year, they set out to win Joe McDonagh. They aren't even considered preliminary quarterfinal. Like, just a kind of like a side here is like, we were in last year. We were in Offaly and we were at the Offaly Cork game. And speaking to a few people, and we won't mention them, but like between players and background staff, there was very little interest. The team were out enjoying themselves until Wednesday or Thursday, and rightly so. And then they have to turn up for training on Friday and play a match on Saturday. Like, that's not what winning on Ireland should be about. It should be about enjoying it, embraced, and go back to your clubs, meeting your family and friends, and enjoying every aspect of it. Not just going out and having a few drinks or whatever. Like, it's about meeting people, talking about it. and all those other things, and turn up to a match that's
But even
irrelevant in the overall context of what this is about. Doesn't.
But even look at the previous week, right? The Laurie Maher, the Hickey record, and the Christie Ring. Like, look how much winning those competitions meant to those teams, and they're all Ireland final, one promotion gained, end of year.
Yeah, and happy.
And it doesn't devalue the competition. Now, I would argue that we could cover the Joe McDonagh because of the quality of show and
the closeness of it.
And that would help the promotion of the game. So Willie Maher
there, I have his number. I'll give him
Willie Maher will talk to you.
Yeah. This is not just an analysis show. This is a promotion for.
This is.
So with that in mind, we could talk here for slightly longer on this, but we won't. So again, thanks to Séamus. If anyone is interested in watching in detail the football version of this, be sure to tune in to the lads. Their show will be on tomorrow. So from Séamus, myself, we'll see you on Saturday in Laois for the big preliminary quarter-final that Séamus can't wait to go and see.
I love going to hurling games. Can't wait.
And you love going because you can leave the 5 kids at home.
No, they can come too.
Well, I suppose Richie, myself, and Bubbles are your 3 adopted kids on match day.
My kids are better behaved.
That's absolutely true. So with that in mind, thanks a million, Séamus, and I will see you on Saturday.
Long call.